They say tools make the man, or hero. Well, the hero makes the tools in some cases, other cases is a giant dwarf at a dying star, or a powerful being from another dimension, or powerful beings from another planet that is then put together by someone else and then, maybe that saying isn't very accurate. Regardless, the pages of Marvel is full of powerful weapons and objects that have yet to make their way into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's not just judgmental hammers and Infinity Stone holding amulets. With Phase 4 on the horizon, here are some of the cool weapons that we'd love to see.
Hey Spanish speakers, we've got an exciting new announcement from the folks over on Screen Rant, the Pelicula, an all-Spanish channel for film theories, MCU coverage, movie news, and much more. We have videos for fans of, well, everything. So jump on over to DP's channel and let them know we sent you, in Spanish, of course. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.
Iron Man's third solo movie doesn't make a lot of people's top 10 list when it comes to MCU movies. While it had its moments, including a prelude of Pepper and Tony's armor, the main complaint lies in the disappointing fake-outs in the movie's villains. The movie promised not one but two of Tony Stark's biggest rivals. Advanced Idea Mechanics, the cult-like evil science organization, was instead the fake company hiding the action of Aldrich Killian. And the menacing Mandarin was simply an actor named Trevor Slattery, also hired by Killian, to hide the results of the Extremis experiments. At the time, the MCU was in its infancy, and while there was already a Thor and Loki running around, all the rage in comic book movies was still realism. Well, as realistic as power suits and Asgardians can get. So it was thought that the Mandarin, with his 10 power rings, formed from the wreckage of a spacecraft of alien space dragons that contain and control the souls of ancient warriors with an inbuilt artificial intelligence, might be too much. We can't imagine why. But then Thanos at that point was just a cameo. The Mandarin is scheduled to make his real arrival in the upcoming Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and we can't wait. Thor isn't the only Odin son who has a few favorite toys that can help him do what he does. Loki has also made use of some tools, including a set of magic stones. No, not those stones. Well, not for lack of trying, at least. No, the stones that Loki used are called the Norn Stones. Though those aren't his stones to begin with, they originally belonged to Asgard's weird neighbor, Karnilla. Karnilla is a powerful sorceress from Nornheim, where the Norns, the three sisters that oversee the fates of the 10 realms, reside. So the Norn Stones are from Nornheim, where the Norns live. No mnemonic device is needed for that. Loki explains that the stones work different depending on who is wielding them. Like Mjolnir, that only works for people it judges as worthy. The Norn Stones make a determination as to how and if they'll work for whoever is trying to use them. They're kinda like my car. The Warriors 3 used them to travel between realms looking for Fenris at one point, and Loki even loaned them out to the Avengers. Fenris and the Warriors 3 are gone in the main reality of the MCU, and so is Loki. But as the Loki that bounced out with the Tesseract in Endgame gets his own series, we might get to see the Norn Stones after all. Some of the weapons have been hinted at in the MCU, even if they haven't been formally introduced. When Odin dies at the beginning of Ragnarok, that unleashes Thor's big sis Hela, who gets straight to breaking her brother's things and dispatching all his best friends. The tool she uses to kill the Warriors 3 looks suspiciously like the Necro Sword. Like a lot of things of this nature, it goes back to the creation of the universe, where all the cool stuff was forged. It also happens to tie into one friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Man, this guy really gets around. In the beginning, there was a powerful being named Null, who didn't like the power that the Celestials had. To prove a point, he beheaded one of them, and then used the head to forge himself a living sword of pure darkness. Null used the sword to go on a god-killing spree until he was killed. That's when All-Black struck out on its own as the first and most powerful of the symbiotes that became known as the Clintarians, the most famous, of course, being Venom. Where Venom takes over regular old heroes, All-Black takes over gods and celestials, like a god-level Venom. Whether we'll see him in the MCU proper or Sony's Spider-Verse, it'd be really cool. Thanos' first speaking role in the MCU during Guardians of the Galaxy, he didn't do a lot of walking. Apparently, he was saving the energy up for when he'd walk through the MCU in Infinity War. Instead, he spent his time in a menacing-looking floating throne. Thanos isn't the only one with a sweet piece of furniture, though. There's another bad guy who could be on the horizon for Phase 4 who has a tricked-out seat of his own. That person is none other than the time-traveling Kang the Conqueror. While it's said that Alexander wept when there was no more kingdoms to conquer, the 41st century conqueror just decided to start flipping through time and conquering all things all over again. The chair can take whoever sits on it through time, protect them with force shields and lasers, and can even peek into various timelines as well. That's a pretty sweet chair. Like a lot of things though, it all comes back to Tony Stark. While the chair is from the 41st century, it's based on Tony's 21st technology inventions. Should Kang make an appearance in the MCU, he's sure to bring his chair with him. There won't be a Tony Stark to figure out it's built on his tech, but the MCU has no shortage of smart people. There are some weapons that have made not one but two appearances in movies without actually ever showing up. The Juggernaut made a less than auspicious debut as a meme-spouting baddie in the much-aligned X3 The Last Stand. For Juggernaut's second round, the makers of Deadpool 2 decided to give the Juggernaut a bigger showing. This was much more in line with the indestructible Juggernaut that we know from the comics. What's not in either of those appearances, though, is how the Juggernaut got so indestructible. Cain Marko is a stepbrother of Charles Xavier, but he's not a mutant. Instead, he got his power when he stumbled across the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak. Cyttorak is one of the 8 beings that make up the Octosense. As godlike beings do, they got into an argument over who was the baddest of the bunch and naturally decided to settle it with a bet. They all made gems that hold their essence, and whatever human touched it would become their exemplar. Then the 8 exemplars would wage a war, and the winner would be the most powerful. Make sense? They couldn't just have arm wrestled or something like that? Marko Cain found that gem and became the Juggernaut. Now that Juggernaut is in the MCU, we might get to see the origins of his power. Thor might be best known for his mighty hammer Mjolnir, or even for his Thanos-killing replacement Stormbreaker, but those aren't the only tools of his trade that he's employed. Before he got the Judgmental Hammer, he had a battle axe that also had a mouthful of a name. The axe was called Jarnbjorn. When Thor and Mjolnir had a bit of a tiff with Mjolnir refusing to budge for the God of Thunder in the 9th century, Thor went back to his old axe to deal with his earthly foes, including the Frost Giants. In the 11th century, he brought it back from storage to deal with Apocalypse, bleeding on it to give it even more power. Thor, being a little careless with his things, lost the axe some time ago. It's not like we hold on to our phones when we upgrade, you know? The axe eventually found its way into the hands of Kang the Conqueror, who apparently is also a bit of an Avengers memorabilia collector. Whenever it shows up in the hands of Kang the Conqueror, or if Thor digs it up in the upcoming Love and Thunder, which is bound to need a few magic weapons with Jane Foster taking on Thor duties, and the eternal hope for Beta Ray Bill, it'd be pretty cool to see some more of Thor's arsenal. While the MCU has only one pantheon walking around amongst the rest of us, Marvel Comics has several, including the demigod Hercules. Like Thor, Hercules has a signature weapon in the Legends. But unlike Thor, Hercules isn't really the fancy type. Instead of a fancy hammer that rates your worthiness, Hercules preferred a plain old club. If you're the strongest person on Earth, you don't need to be fancy. Except that in the superhero world of the comics, Hercules isn't the strongest, he's just one of the strongest. So the club-wielding Hercules got an upgrade. That comes in the form of a golden mace forged by Hephaestus out of a substance called adamantine, said to be just as strong as Mjolnir. No need for a complicated test to see which is the strongest, guys. If adamantine sounds familiar, it should. During World War II, Dr. Myron McLean was trying to replicate the powerful metal when he took a nap and missed out on how he managed to create something similar using steel, vibranium, and a mystery catalyst. That became Captain America's shield, and his results to replicate that without the hard-to-obtain vibranium became adamantium. Thor might get some demigod company in the MCU as he brings his own magic weapon, though seriously, no weird contest to see who's the strongest, guys. The Eye of Agamotto has been a key weapon for the master of the mystical arts, Doctor Strange. In the MCU, that eye happens to have housed the Time Stone that allowed Doctor Strange to do a lot of messing with time itself, including creating a time loop and forcing Dormammu to bargain. The Eye of Agamotto isn't the only magical eye floating around in the Marvel Universe, however. There's also the Evil Eye of Avalon. The history of the Evil Eye of Avalon is a bit complicated. You see, Dane Whitman, who became the Black Knight, traveled back in time to the body of his ancestor, who was also the Black Knight, where he met a guy named Prester John during the Crusades, who eventually ended up in Avalon, where he became the protector of the Evil Eye, until it exploded into 6 pieces that Dormammu and Loki tricked the Avengers and Defenders into finding by telling the Defenders that's how they could get their Dane Whitman unfrozen as a statue, even though he was really like that because he was in the past being Eobard Garrington, Dane Whitman's ancestor, and also Black Knight. Whew! Did you get all that? No! Told you it was complicated. With the Black Knight making an appearance in the Eternals, maybe the Evil Eye might as well. Quasar's Quantum Band sounds like an awesome 70s space funk band that would open up for Funkadelic, but instead they're a pair of bands discovered by S.H.I.E.L.D. and put to use by a mild-mannered researcher when AIM designed robots showing up to try and steal them. Wendell Vaughn was able to put the bands on and use their power to defeat the AIM bots, allowing Wendell Vaughn to become the hero Quasar. While Vaughn had figured out how to use the bands that let him tap into the quantum energy that fuels the Marvel Universe, no one knew where they came from. Turns out they were created by Eon. No, not the creepy clock vulture from Rudolph's Shiny New Year. This Eon is an aspect of time in the Marvel Universe and lives in his own dimension, the Eonverse. Pretty straightforward name. Eon created the quantum bands for the protectors of the universe. Once Quasar fell into the role of Universe Protector, he's been bopping about the universe, even being part of the Annihilators with cosmic powerhouses like Silver Surfer. Quasar might end up making an appearance in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which means we might get a glimpse of Quasar's quantum bands and their space-bending powers. Thanos had one big plan for the Marvel Cinematic Universe during the Infinity Saga. He wanted to gather the Infinity Stones and use them to snap out half of all life and save the other half. Once he accomplished that goal, he figured that the universe would be grateful. Turns out, not so much. The Avengers went skipping through time to get their own Infinity Stones in the hopes of snapping everyone back into existence. Once Thanos from the past realized that's what was going to happen, he decided that the universe would never be grateful. So he came up with a new plan: destroy the universe and build a new one. That plan didn't come out of nowhere. There's a Marvel storyline where Thanos finds an omnipotent force called the Heart of the Universe. The Heart of the Universe had originally been discovered by the Celestial Order, who had used that power to create beings to rule various parts of the universe. Naturally, the one from Earth went nuts and tried to kill everyone. There's a lot of shenanigans that eventually end up with Thanos gaining the power, only to realize the universe is going to end, and to save it, he has to destroy it and himself and rebuild it from scratch. The story isn't considered canon for the comics, but the Heart of the Universe could be used as a rebooting tool for the MCU. Those are some of the weapons we'd like to see in Phase 4. Which ones are you looking forward to? What would you like to see added to the list? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not hit that subscribe button? It's a powerful weapon that puts the latest videos in your inbox. Thanks for watching.